Hey, what is up, everybody? Michael Crump back here again, talking about the latest and the greatest in PlayStation 4 homebrew news and much, much more. So, I've been away for a couple of days, primarily because I have had this nasty infection. You can probably still hear it here in my voice, but that doesn't stop some of the content that I've been working on, and especially some of the cool stuff that I wanted to share with you today. So, a couple of days ago, I posted on my YouTube community page that I had created this PlayStation Vita dock, really just using a bunch of parts around my house. I had a couple of folks ask how I did it, so I decided to pull together some of the materials as well as record how I did it and share that here with you. That way, if you want to create your own dock, then you can do so and you can enjoy your PlayStation Vita directly off your television with audio and then using your DualShock 4 controller. So let's learn how to do that, and we'll begin by taking a look at the parts that I used for my setup. So the very first thing that you're going to need is going to be a PlayStation Vita, and this can be any model. So I have the 2000 model, and if you have the 1000, again, that's okay. Just any PlayStation Vita. You will need to have that Vita jailbroken. And I have a video that you can check out in the comments below if you want to learn how to jailbreak your PlayStation Vita. Again, it doesn't matter which version that you've got or even what firmware it's currently on. All models can be jailbroken at this point. Next up, since I'm using a 2000 model, they switched to a micro USB cable. So you will need one micro USB cable that you're going to connect the PlayStation Vita to the actual Raspberry Pi, and we'll go into that in just a moment. And then you'll need another micro USB cable that you'll be plugging into the Raspberry Pi directly into a power source. And then you will need a Bluetooth adapter, primarily just for the audio that's going to be sent from the PlayStation Vita back over to the Raspberry Pi. This one right here that I purchased cost me about $6 US. You will need a micro SD card for the Pi. So this is one that I did have just kind of lying around the house. I believe this is 16 gigabytes. The main requirements is that you're primarily just going to need one that is at least 4 gigabytes in order to put the image onto it that will run the software for the VitaDock. Then you'll need a Raspberry Pi. Now, I'm using a Raspberry Pi 2 Model B simply because I cannot purchase, at least at a reasonable price, a Raspberry Pi 3 or a Raspberry Pi 4 right now. These are the same sorts of problems that we ran into months ago when we were talking about using a Raspberry Pi for the PlayStation 4 jailbreak. So I did have a Raspberry Pi 2 lying around my house. And again, this is a Model B and it is a very older model, but it still works regardless. Now, there's a little bit more information on the GitHub product page in case maybe you want to try using this with the Raspberry Pi Zero W or one of those models. For the most part, what I can tell you is that it's not really recommended. The best device, I believe, is going to be the Raspberry Pi 4 if you have one of those. And then lastly, you are going to need at least a DualShock 4. You can use a DualShock 3, which obviously those came out with the PlayStation 3 era, but I would definitely get one PlayStation 4 DualShock 4 controller and just let it be dedicated to your PlayStation Vita. This is one that I picked up in a garage sale at some point. I believe I paid about $15 for it. It's a perfect candidate to using with my PlayStation Vita. And so once you've got all of those parts, what it will look like all put together will be something just like this. You have your PlayStation Vita, you have your micro USBs going into your Raspberry Pi, you have your Bluetooth USB adapter plugged into your Raspberry Pi, you have your SD card that you're going to put the operating system on in just a moment inside of your Raspberry Pi. And then you simply have a external power cable, which is a micro USB cable that's connected here. And this will go into any sort of a wall outlet in order to provide power to the Raspberry Pi. Okay, so talking a little bit about the hardware first. hopefully clears some items up about what's all needed and what's required. Now let's look at the software side of things. So you will need Win32 Disk Imager in order to take the image file and actually install it to the SD card. So you can begin by going to win32diskimager.org and then clicking right over here where it says download and then pressing the download button again. It should take just a moment and you should have that downloaded. You can go ahead and install it once this process has completed. And so next up is going to be VitaDockPlus. So it says VitaDockPlus is the new and improved VitaDock software. And so if you search on YouTube, you'll find a lot of folks that have created videos on the VitaDock, but they were using the original VitaDock. There was a bunch of different reasons why they came up with this new and improved version. And after testing the older version, I can definitely say I like this one much better. So head over to this GitHub page here, and you can see right down here where it lists some of the improvements over the original. So things such as using FFmpeg plus FFplay to result in lower processor usage, fits on 4 GB SD cards, lower input latency, and obviously much, much more. So let's go to Releases, VitaDockPlus, and let's click on the mega link here. And once that finishes, let's go ahead and let's click on Download. And again, you can see here it's 3.43 gigabytes. Okay, so once it completes, you may see this screen here that says, this type of file can harm your computer. Do you want to keep the image anyway? Just make sure you press keep there, and that way Windows will not delete it automatically. So I'm just going to press keep, and we are done here. Now, in order for our PlayStation Vita to work with the dock itself, as well as work with our DualShock 4 controller, there is a few things that we're going to need to do, and most of those can be easily managed now with this tool right here called Auto Plugin 2 version 1.25. But go ahead and navigate to this page, and once you do so, click on where it says Auto Plugin 2.vpk and download that to your computer. And so here is a screenshot that I took with my PS Vita, and you will see where it just simply says USB connected. So you should see in Windows Explorer a new window pop up that shows that new drive that's just been added to your computer. Because we need to transfer this Auto Plugin 2.vpk back over to our Vita device. Once your Vita is plugged in, you should see a USB drive and there should be a downloads folder. You should be able to just paste in that file that you just downloaded, which was the Auto Plugin 2.vpk. Okay, and on your PlayStation Vita now, let's go ahead and let's install that Auto Plugin package file that we just downloaded. So let's go to our Vita shell. Again, you should have this if you followed the previous jailbreak tutorial that I had. And we're going to navigate down to where it says UX0, and we're going to go into Downloads. Okay, and now we're going to select Auto Plugin 2.vpk. Okay, and we're going to hit yes there and give it just a moment, and it should complete. And once this finishes installing, we're just going to head back to our home screen, and then we're going to select Auto Plugin 2. Okay, that just about does it there. We'll scroll down, and there is Auto Plugin 2 bouncing, and we're going to hit Start, and then OK again. We're going to go to Vita Plugins. Okay, so we need to, first off, make sure that we install the UDCD_UVC by XERPI version 1.7. As you can see, mine is already green because I already have that installed. If yours isn't green, then you are going to want to make sure that you install it. And I'll just go ahead and install it again on mine. And there we go. It says it has been installed. Let's go ahead now and let's add in the one that we need for our DualShock 4 controller. And that is just simply going to be DS4 Vita by XERPI version 1.2. Okay. And now that has been installed. So those are the only two plugins that you will need on your Vita in order to get this to work. And keep in mind that once you install these, you do need to go ahead and to reboot your system. On mine, I got this message that popped up after installing those, and it says, your PS Vita will restart. So just go ahead and let it restart, and everything hopefully will come back up okay. Now you would probably want to plug in the micro SD card that's for your Raspberry Pi into your computer. And if you do so and you see something similar to mine right here, which says that there is a couple of different partitions on there, it probably would be best before we image it to kind of clean off everything from that disk in order to make sure that the disk imaging process goes smoothly. So as you can see here, disk 1 is my micro SD card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete both of these partitions. So I'm just going to begin by going right here to the 15.41 and deleting it. And once that's complete, I'm going to do the same thing for the boot, and I'm just pressing the delete key, by the way. Okay, now that that's complete, I'm just going to go new simple volume, next. We'll save the defaults there, and yeah, we'll just go ahead and select FAT32. It really won't matter, and it should be complete at this point. Again, the primary reason for doing this is to make sure that when we get to the disk imaging part here in just a moment, that we have the best chances for everything to go smooth. Okay, so if you went ahead and you installed the Win32 disk imager and now you open that executable, you should see what I have right here on the screen. So we need to select the image file first. So I'm just going to simply go to this little folder icon. I'm going to select VitaDockPlus. Again, I've only got one drive, and that's just going to be my E drive. Double check and make sure if you've got multiple things plugged in that you are selecting the right device. And really the best guidance that I can just give here is to unplug everything that's not necessary except for your SD card that you already have inserted into the computer. And now we just need to simply go down here and we need to click on the right button and then select yes, and then give it a few moments and it will be complete. Okay, and so as you can see here, it took about 5 minutes for my card to be wrote to. So you will see write successful if it completed successfully. And by the way, don't worry if you see this message that pops up saying you need to format the disk and drive E before you can use it. Just go ahead and press cancel on that screen. And if you take a look now at your SD card, you should see something very similar to this, where it has at least a number of different DAT files to L files and DPT files. If you see this, again, you're in great shape. So go ahead and take out your SD card from your computer and put it inside of your Raspberry Pi. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's boot up our Raspberry Pi to start with here. And you should see this splash screen that does say, or this background that says PS Vita Dock Plus. There is a couple of instructions that you first need to read through here before you get started. Some of the main things to kind of keep in mind here is that it does say that you will need this Vita UD CD-UVC plugin installed on your Vita first. It also states that the dock is set up for native playback at 30 frames per second. But you can switch it to a lower resolution mode to run at 60 frames per second. For the most part, the 30 frames per second works very well. And then finally here, there is this discussion about the audio output from your PlayStation Vita to your TV. So it states in here, you can use an aux cable from your Vita directly to your TV, but I found that quite cumbersome. So I elected to go with a Bluetooth adapter, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. Again, it was about $6 in order to get that. It does state that, if your internal Bluetooth is glitching, you can use a Bluetooth dongle, which again is what I used. Once you have read over that, you can simply click on where it says OK down at the bottom. Okay, and so once you have clicked on OK, you can click on the little Raspberry Pi icon down in the very bottom, and you can go to where it says options. And as you can see here, there's a couple of different things that you can do. You can start low latency mode. You can check out the audio device settings. But the main thing that we want to do here is we want to switch to where it says use dongle Bluetooth. So go ahead and select that one. Once you do that, you will see a bit of a restart, reboot sequence that happens, but then eventually you will be back to where you were before. All right, let's head over to our settings and let's go start Bluetooth. And there is our DualShock 4 wireless controller. So if you go into that, then you will see that the DualShock 4 wireless controller has been found. And if you are having a hard time getting that to pick up, let me remind you that if you press the start button and the share button on your Bluetooth or your DualShock 4 controller, that automatically puts that into discovery mode. So again, the PlayStation button and the share button, just hold both of those down and your PlayStation Vita should find it. And as far as the audio goes, if you have plugged in that USB Bluetooth adapter that I mentioned earlier, you will see this little Bluetooth icon. And if you're having problems getting the audio to pick up or for this adapter to start working, you can simply go back and press on this little Bluetooth icon and then make sure that it just says make discoverable. Once you click on that, and then let's switch back over to the PlayStation Vita and back into our settings and then Bluetooth devices, you will see that the VitaDock is now showing. So you can go ahead and select on VitaDock and then press connect, give it just a moment. And then again, when you see that little green icon, that means it has been detected successfully. Okay, so now at this point, you have everything ready to go. It's time to take this out of maybe your computer room and then bring it into your living room or wherever you play your game. So I'm going to take my stuff and I'm going to head to the living room and try this out in the real world. Okay, so let's see how the controller works. So here is my DualShock 4 controller, and it is navigating my Vita just perfect. And let's go ahead and start a game. So we will run this Worms game that I've been playing, which I'm a big fan of this whole series. So cool to play this game on the big screen. And there we go. And if we look at things, here is my Vita. And in this instance, I'm actually just using a PlayStation 3 that I already had. And I've plugged my power in directly from there. Obviously, this probably isn't what you would want to do simply because there's not enough power coming out in order to charge the Vita as well as to take care of powering the Raspberry Pi device. But definitely a quick solution that I went for this video. Again, there is my HDMI cable that leads out to my television. There again is the power cable, again plugged into the PlayStation 3. Here is the cable that's connecting directly to my PlayStation Vita. There is my Bluetooth adapter. And well, that's absolutely it. So I thank you so very much for watching. Hopefully you learned something out of this. If you create your own VitaDock, you totally got to let me know. I'd love to hear and learn more about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Michael